All right, thanks for coming, folks. Nice crowd today. We're going to open up the floor.
Nice crowd.
Front row, Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Hi, Ryan. I know you're not going to comment on what's going on specifically in Michigan, but just sign stealing in general, how much you have to be aware of. I know it's nothing new. We talked to you about it before the Clemson game a few years ago. Just how aware of it do you have to be?
Yeah. Whether anything regarding that right now, I'm just not gonna comment on today. I'd rather just focus on Wisconsin, but I obviously appreciate it. You got to ask your questions, but that's just something I don't want to get into right now. Yeah.
Second row right, Bill Landis.
He can ask another question if he wants, because that doesn't really count. That's kind of just the one you throw out there.
Dallin, is it the plan still to redshirt Dallin, or you just kind of wait and see?
No. Well, I mean, we're going to keep pushing that this week and evaluate it again this week. But, we'll see how the week goes. But we're going to push it to see if we can get him in a game this week. Yeah.
Second row right, Bill Landis, Rivals, the podcast.
Right, on the play where Devin got hurt, was there any discussion about whether or not he actually scored on that play? It looked kind of close. I don't know. They didn't announce a replay.
They did review it. They did, yeah, and they said he was short. Yeah, we knew it was really close. Once he went down, I figured wouldn't have to use a challenge because I thought it was really close. But once that happened, they let me know that they did review the call.
And I know you said I think last time on the radio that you're not going to have him for a few weeks. So does that package of plays get shelved? Do you look at, can Lincoln do any of that stuff, or a Wildcat situation like that?
No, he's very athletic, and he can. He's younger, but he is athletic. So we're going to look to see if we can maybe possibly get him in that role. See how the week goes.
Fourth row middle, Tony Gergen, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, with Carnell Tate being as advanced as he is, where does he compare to guys at this time in the past? Chris Olave and Marvin, those guys.
Similar. I mentioned that to somebody just the other day. You look at where Chris was that year, Garrett, Jackson, but those guys, Marvin, Beck, they were coming on as you hit the mid-year, and then the second half of the season is where they really made an impact. And I think Carnell coming at mid-year allowed him the opportunity to be in that same position and kind of be on the same trajectory.
Do you view him basically as a starter at this point?
He's a contributing member of the offense, and he does. He's got a really good skill set. He's got to keep growing and building for sure, but he's somebody that we feel confident putting in the game.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Just kind of more on the Lincoln stuff. I know that's a guy where we're talking about Dallin in redshirting situations. That was probably the plan with Lincoln as well. How much is that changing? And also, is Tristan your clear QB2 with Devin being out? I
don't. I think we'll go through the week and give those guys reps and see how that goes. Tristan has experience. I think they might be 5 or 6 years apart. Talk about different guys. But I think where those guys are. One's a more experienced guy. One is a younger guy that we think has a really bright future here. So both are different spots in their career. And we'll kind of see how this week goes. Devin's been getting the majority of the reps with the two, so those guys haven't really got a ton of reps. We do practice on Sunday, afterwards, and allow the younger guys to get reps. So that's where Lincoln's got a bunch of his reps. I think he's done a great job of staying engaged. Tristan's done a great job in his role, but now that role is going to change this week. So we'll see how the week goes, and who knows, maybe they both will have an opportunity.
Can other guys maybe play that role, like maybe Xavier, other people? Does that not necessarily be a quarterback in the situation when you guys go with that red zone package?
No, I mean, we do have guys, and Xavier played, a little bit of that in high school, and we messed around with a couple things with Mecca, but it certainly makes it, going on the road and, with the environment, to put somebody in there like that. I mean, that's kind of a tough spot to be in. So we usually like to use the quarterbacks.
Right behind him, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, it seemed like the running game, you kind of just got something going there in the first half, and then in the second half, it really wasn't effective at all. Just when you look back at the film, what did you see as maybe the biggest issues there?
I wish I could point to one thing, but I think it was a combination again, which, isn't good enough. They're very good against the run. Don't get me wrong, but it was, there were times where, there was something that wasn't fit up front properly, or it was the running back, maybe not hitting the hole correctly. There was a couple runs in there that I wish, schematically we had back. But again, I'm just looking at the film. I don't think there was anything there that we just had an extra guy coming off the edge. So, we got to execute it better. We got to coach it better. And, that's on us as coaches to get it done. And, so we'll work our tails off to get it done this week, because we need that balance, and we got to be able to do that.
How fixable do you feel like those issues are at this point?
I think they're fixable, but we got to get them fixed. That's the bottom line. And so we'll keep grinding on that.
Right behind it, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, I assume the answer to this will be competitive excellence, but you come off a big emotional win against Penn State.
Yep.
You go on the road to a tough place against a team that maybe hasn't had the success. We've kind of seen this story before with Iowa a handful of years ago. How do you keep the guys at that same level in maybe a game that won't necessarily have the same feel, even though it's a night game on the road?
Right. It's that competitive stamina that you mentioned. I mean, that's the term that we talk about in the, in the preseason. When you look at the schedule, we talk about where we're going to be, and we knew we had to go on the road this year and be road warriors. Notre Dame early on was going to be, a really difficult environment. We knew this was going to be the same way, and so we talked about it on Sunday as a team that we've got to bring it this week. They're playing well. They're a good football team. They're got a really good opportunity to win their side, and we can't let last week affect this week. And if we want to, championship teams bring it every week. They don't have ups and downs and letdowns, so we're not allowed to have a letdown. We got to bring it, and we know it'll be a night game. I think it's Halloween weekend. I mean, it's going to be rocking. We know that. So it all starts with what kind of practice week we're going to have, and we've got to do a great job today of getting out there and putting it on the field, and first, second down, then coming back and having a great Wednesday, and then building towards it. But that's something that we've talked about for a couple of years now. You've heard me say that, we're not allowed to have a bad day. We can't do that. And this is an example of going on the road, in the middle to end of the season against a really good team. And, this is always a big challenge for anybody in the conference. And so we got to do a great job this week.
Third row right, Dylan Davis.
Going back to the run game struggles, I know every coach is chasing balance. I get that. But I guess at what point in the season do you just have to accept that you are who you are on offense and maybe adjust accordingly to that?
Oh, we do that every week. Yeah, we're trying to figure out what we do best. We go in there and try to identify the things that we think we can do well, and then what fits for that week. Each week is a different challenge, different styles of defenses in the conference. But that's something we do on a weekly basis.
Is it reasonable to expect that you'll see improvement in the run games of the season, that you can still get to that point?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's a valid question. It's at what point? I think there has been signs of that. So we're going to keep pushing, and we think, getting a couple guys back, could help as well, help us become more explosive. So we keep pushing. We believe we can do it, and I know we can. I mean, the number one goal is to win and be 1-0 on Saturday night, but you do want to see certain progress in areas that you're focusing on. Some of them we have over the season, some that we need to do a better job of. But now as we get into the home stretch, we got to be playing our best football. We said that, right? We want to be playing our best football at the end of the season, so we got to roll.
Far right, Clay Hall, WSYX.
This may be from the same family of questions, but has the college game ever considered technology in the helmet audio to, you don't need 6 people on the sideline?
I believe they have. It's come up in meetings, but I don't know where that's at right now.
Like cost issue or?
Right. I'm not exactly sure. Yeah.
And how do you avoid the distraction of all of that up there? And maybe you just said it.
Yeah. Well, again, when you're at Ohio State, there's always going to be noise, whether it's things that you aren't doing well or, things you are doing well. Coming off of a game like we just had was exciting. Our defense played excellent. There was flashes on offense. You win the game. It's your second top 10 victory in first 7 weeks, you have to ignore that noise too. I still come to work every day thinking we're not very good, and I feel like we should have won by 30 points, and you have to have that mentality, because whether good, bad, or indifferent, you can't ignore you have to ignore what's going on outside, because what matters is what's going on in this building right here and getting better and winning on Saturday. So that's part of being at Ohio State. And, we love that part of it because everything we do is relevant, but we have to make sure we're staying focused and avoiding all distractions.
Far left, Joe Nugent, WCMH.
Do you have an update on Trey, Denzel, and Mecca that will be available this week?
Yeah, we're expecting to have great weeks of practice out of those guys. Expecting to have them ready on Saturday. I know that I said that last week and didn't quite get there, but we're looking to have a really good week of practice and having those guys available.
And facing a man who spent a lot of time in this building, what stands out about what Luke is doing in Wisconsin?
I think it just started when he was at Cincinnati and what he did there and what he built. His teams are always well coached. Certainly, he left a lot behind here as a player and as a coach. Very well respected by so many, and so we know going in that they're going to be well coached. They're going to play hard. They have a bunch of guys on that staff with great experience, and so nothing but respect for Luke, his staff, the team, the program. Wisconsin's always been an excellent program, and Luke's done a great job.
Third row left, Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
Coach, Travion, when he does play, hopefully this weekend, as you said, how much difference can he make in your running game, and what do you expect?
Well, we hope he makes a big impact. Certainly, we know that he can hit home runs, and he did that in the Notre Dame game, and certainly that was a big difference in what we're doing. We have confidence in all of our running backs, but he does allow us the opportunity to hit a home run and be explosive. So that doesn't just happen. There's a lot that comes with that, but hopefully we get a good week of practice and him can go put it on the field.
Second row left, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
Just to kind of piggyback on the question that Pat asked you before, but you were on the staff in 2017 and 2018 when you had those kind of unexpected losses. Did that experience inform how you have maybe approached things since then as programs become your own? Are there things that you've tried to emphasize to not have those sorts of unexpected collapses?
Yeah. Every year you learn things. You identify the things that you did well, and then you recognize the things that you have to improve on. And every year you learn. You learn about your staff. You learn about the players. You learn in recruiting how to adapt. But you also learn as the season goes on things that have happened, things that you recognized where you have to make sure that you're communicating some things that may happen a certain way, and you try to communicate that to your team and make sure that everyone's aware of that so you don't get ambushed. And again, the more experience you have, you try to do the best you can to relay it to everybody to make sure they're prepared, because our goal again is to put them in the best situation to be successful. And so that's why we have to have a great week of practice to make sure we're out in front of this and we're playing our best football on Saturday night.
How would you assess Carson Hensman's performance right now relative to where you expected maybe someone in his position to be halfway through this year, but also with such little experience he has, maybe especially with this kind of offense?
Yeah, Carson coming in had not started a game before, really hadn't played a whole bunch of football. So, we know that he's got he's talented and he's got a bright future ahead of him. And, losing Whippler last year, forced him into action. And I thought, there's been some really good moments out there where he's done some really good things. There's still things he's growing on, just like everybody, but or building on, and he's growing. And the goal is to have his best football here now be the home stretch, because there's no way to replace, playing on the road in these styles of games, or seeing these different styles of defense week in and week out. We've seen 4 down, we've seen 3 down, we've seen 5 down, we've seen pressures, and those are all new experiences for him, just like a quarterback would be. And for the center, there's a lot of communication that goes on. You have to get everybody on the same page. You have to handle the snap count. You got to handle the snap, and then you got to do your job. So, got to be able to multitask. And he's growing with it. He's building. It's not an easy job. But again, the goal is that he's going to be playing his best football here down the stretch.
Front row right, Austin Ward. the podcast Rivals.
Ryan, we've seen Kyle when the stakes are highest, meet the moment. We've seen him make throws into really ridiculous windows, and then they're just at times like the easy ones don't seem to connect. What causes that with a young quarterback? How can you work through that?
Well, it starts with practice, being consistent in practice and building that confidence so that, as coaches, we got to continue to put them in situations where, hey, the game almost is easier than practice. And that's where it starts. And then you build the confidence of seeing the look and seeing the throws and making the throws consistently. And that's just what it comes down to, is being consistent, trusting your feet, trusting your eyes, and then making the routine plays routinely, and then taking care of the football. So I think there's definitely been signs where we've done that. And when we do, the offense is rolling. And so we'll keep working on that. And just, like I mentioned about Carson, the goal is that we're playing our best football here over the next month.
The screen to Marvin early, it's hard. I have no idea. It's hard for me to tell if maybe Marvin took a step the wrong way, or if Kyle was pressured. When you evaluated that play and we're saying, well, the throw was off target, how much of that on that one was Kyle? How much of it was something that we don't know? Yeah, I mean, we could probably go through the film and go through each of the plays and identify, who was right, who was wrong in these situations. And so what I don't like to do is point fingers one way or another. But the bottom line is, I think that's what I'm talking about with practice. We've got to be so clean that, we take the practice field to the game and that we connect. And it's our job as receivers, as quarterbacks, as coaches to make sure that it's exact on the field, the timing, the spacing, the protection, all of that. And, I can't just say it's one thing, but, we've got to connect in those areas. We've got to do that. Whether it's first and second down, third down, red zone. So we'll work back, we'll get back at it this week to make sure that we're efficient, because you can see what's out there. I mean, the possibilities are there. I mean, it's there. We got to go do it. And, if we're going to make this run here, we're going to need to do that.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Brian, as far as the helmet technology goes, in the NFL, they have the mics in the system. And you just mentioned that, talked about, would you be in favor of something like that? Would you be supportive of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's again, it's not something that we're going to discuss right now, because it doesn't really matter right now. What matters is playing this game. But I do think we should definitely consider that, because it would certainly help.
How did you find it in the NFL one? Because that was in place when you were there. Right?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, the coach on the sideline had the walkie-talkie, and he would be able to communicate, into the headset.
Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
The numbers from him say that Josh Simmons has had his 3 best run blocking grades in each of the last 3 games. Does that line up with what you guys are seeing in the progression from him? And where do you see him still needing to get better if you guys are going to make the run you're talking about?
I would say it's the consistency. Yeah, I mean, there's some really great snaps of film out there, and you're seeing finish, you're seeing pad level. You're seeing really high end play, and it just needs to be a little bit more consistent. He knows that, and that's not just him. And that's why when someone asks, is it fixable? I think these things are. We just need to be more consistent. But the talent is definitely there.
Cameron Teague Robinson, The Athletic.
Ryan, this obviously the adage iron sharpens iron when you guys go good on good in practice. Specifically with the relationship between the corners and the receivers. Over the course of the last year, what's it been like to watch those corners compete against them and improve to the level they're at?
That's the thing that we talk about here. You've heard me say that iron sharpens iron. We get each other better every day. It's not just the 12 Saturdays in the fall. It's every day in practice. And guys are getting each other better. Whether it's, I think one of the reasons why maybe, our tackles were able to block the defensive ends this past weekend is because, you're going against JT and Jack every day in practice, and vice versa. I think, JT and Kenyatta and Jack were able to get pressure, on a really good left tackle because they go against our tackles every day. So it's the same thing on the back end with the receivers and the DBs. And I think it allows them to have confidence knowing that if I'm going against this guy who's, one of the better guys in the country, then when I play against some of the other teams and play in a matchup game, I can play with confidence because I know I've seen myself have success against somebody as good as they are.
And often when you have a freshman like Jermaine, he's playing his first major snaps in a huge game. What you see from spring to now, from him, is that what gives you the confidence knowing that, like, I mean, Jim made the point that he didn't even really know how big the number was. Is that what
that's probably right. Yeah, that's probably right. You know, he just that was him, and that is him. But he's one of the more competitive guys that we had in this incoming class. He loves to compete, and the moment wasn't too big for him. And now he's got to be consistent. You know, it's one thing to do it. Now it's another thing to do it, multiple weeks in a row. So he did step up in a big way, and he has made a lot of progress from when he came in. But that's part of being a freshman. It's part of it is, the football part of it. Other part is just overall, the maturation of a young man.
Andy Backstrom, let him grow.
Ryan, did you guys know that Jordan Hancock could be quite this versatile? I mean, he feels like a huge part of this defense at this moment. I guess what has been your perspective of his development?
Yeah, we felt like when we were recruiting him that this is what we thought he could be. That we thought there was versatility there between nickel and corner, and that's what you're seeing. Very competitive, very instinctual. And you're seeing it. He works really hard. He's another guy with a great work ethic that is always in here watching film, getting extra work in. He's very serious. He was very frustrated last year with that injury that he had, and so worked hard this offseason, and now you're starting to see his best football.
For that 2021 class, you talked before the season about this was going to be a big year for them. 7 games in now, a couple top 10 wins. I guess what's your assessment of that class and how they've come along?
I think they're getting more and more of these big game experiences, and when you get more battles under your belt, you learn more and more. You become more veteran, and now they're becoming that way, and that makes you dangerous as you head into November. So it doesn't mean anything. We still got to play this week, and we've got to keep growing, but it does make a difference when you have guys who played a lot of football. And I just think back on maybe some of the other teams we've had the last couple of years. We've been talented, but not as experienced. So again, I've said this before, we're going to count on that being a difference maker here.
Jeremy Birmingham, the podcast.
Ryan, as you go through a season, there's obviously a ton of things that you're thinking about on a week-to-week basis, tons of different evaluations, minutia. How do you evaluate the job individual assistant coaches are doing as far as their primary responsibilities throughout the season? Is that a conversation you have now, or does it always have to wait until the end of the year?
No, it doesn't have to wait. I think the first and the easiest way to identify it and evaluate is, are your guys grading out as champions during the game? And if yes, then keep it going. If not, we got to figure out why that is. If your guys are grading out over 80% in a game, then that's the sign that your unit's performing at a high level. And we want all 10 units to be operating at a high level. If that's the case, we feel like we can win any game in on the schedule. But if not, then something's going wrong. And each guy is responsible for recruiting their position, and then developing their position, and then ultimately the performance on the field. So, we're all being evaluated, me included. So, every week is an evaluation, in my opinion.
You look at like a year ago with Tim Walton's room, very thin depth-wise, and then a lot of injuries, and then you see the development into this season. It looks like night and day. I mean, how do you measure all of those different data points?
Yeah, well, you first off, it's the eye test, and I think I mentioned that to you guys in the off season. It's like, okay, we'll believe it when we see it, but they were getting their hands on balls all off season, and then now you're starting to see production on the field, and that's what you look for. You look for the eye test, you look for how are they practicing, and then ultimately how are they performing on the field.
Tom Moore, Buckeye Huddle.
There have been a couple times in goal-to-go situations, red zone situations, where you've gone heavy, taken Marvin off the field. I think looking from the outside, you look at how much attention Marvin gets. And I think, it's sort of easy to say, just throw him out to the field side and, have a guy or two chase him out there, and then maybe if your numbers advantage, or you got Marvin one-on-one. What's the thinking behind not just always throwing Marvin out there by himself?
Yeah, well, I think it's a good point. When you get down there on the 1 or 2 yard line, we got to get in. It's unacceptable not to get in. So we have long discussions on what gives us the best chance to do that, and we'll keep doing that. And if having Marv out there gives us the best opportunity, then we'll do that as well. But I feel like, we got to be able to make a yard or two when we get down in there. And I know there's a lot of people in the box. I get it. But, but we'll keep looking at it and making sure that we're doing what's right and putting our guys in the right situation.
All right, Adam King, WPMS.
You kind of joked about winning with defense, but I'm curious, knowing that you have a defense that can go out there and make plays like they did this Saturday, does that change your scheme on offense at all? Does it change your play calling thoughts?
I think, balls on the 2-yard line, we got to get in the end zone. It's just ridiculous that we're not getting in the end zone in that spot. But overall, I just feel like, we're still trying to score every time we touch the ball. When we get into the second half of a game, or we get into a situation where, the defense is playing really well, we also want to make sure that we're 1-0 at the end of the night. And that's my job, to make sure we're winning, and, but that doesn't mean we're not trying to score, 50 points every time we go on the field. We're going to look to do that. And, but as the game goes on, there's certain things where you have to make sure you're not putting your team at risk, and being, foolish.
Doug Maurice, Kings of Columbus.
Marv's percentage of snaps in the slot has gone up the last 3 games. Now that also coincides with Emeka, his injury. But we sort of talked a lot in the preseason about moving Marv around. And can you take us through the process a little bit of when you have a player that good that a defense is going to key on, and yet you find a way to target him 16 times in a game that important, and he has that kind of impact? Like, how did you guys plan that and then execute it?
Well, it's it takes a lot of work. Takes a lot of work by Marv to make sure that we're trying to maximize him as a player and give him the opportunities to win in man-to-man. And I think if you just kind of leave him in one spot all the time, it makes things a lot easier for the defense to key in on him and do everything they can to take him away. So we have to constantly be creative and find ways to do that. And that's our challenge week in and week out. The more efficient we can be in other areas, the less pressure, it puts on Marv. So, I know that we have to do a better job of taking pressure off of him, but at the same time, we're going to try to find as many ways as we can get him the ball.
And when you decide to go to something like a quarterback run package, like you guys have done with Devin, certainly there's skill sets involved with the people, but also not that you don't want anyone to get hurt.
Right.
But when you see the number 2 quarterback get hurt on a play like that, is that part of why maybe you don't want the starting quarterback doing that?
Yes. Yeah. That's a part of it. When you're involved in those styles of runs, you put yourself at risk. I thought Devin ran hard again. He poured it up in there and just came up short. But you have to, that's kind of the risk and reward. And we lost him in that game and probably will for at least a week or two. And so, that's what you try to weigh out, what gives you the best chance and what's the risk versus the reward.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
You said on Saturday when you were asked about Kyle that you'd have to look at the tape and there was going to be some throws that he missed. He made some good throws, but also some ones he missed. When you watched it again, what was your take on it? And is he are you content? That's a loaded word, but with where he is 7 games into his first year as a starter?
Yeah, there was, like we've kind of felt like coming off the field, there was really good plays, and then certainly plays where you like to execute better. I don't think that's unique to Kyle. I think there's a lot of guys who felt that way, and he's in a much different place than he was early in the season. He's got 2 top 10 wins under his belt, and so that there's got to be a lot of confidence there. But there's still room for growth, which is exciting. When we watch the film, there's things that we did well, and other things that we can do better. So he was critical of himself. We're critical of ourselves as coaches, making sure we're putting him in the right spot. And so, if we started out here, we want to get to here. Where are we at in that progression? I don't exactly know, but I know that he's still got a lot of great football ahead of him.
On Saturday, you had the punt that hit Lorenzo. Obviously, it took a funny bounce.
Yep.
But there have been special teams blunders almost every week. How concerned are you about that, and what's your solution for that?
Yeah, when you look at the play a couple weeks ago when the snap cut, blundered, And then this one right here, the bottom line is that those things can't happen. That's just it. And one, it slipped out of his hands. It can't slip out of your hands. Two, the ball bounced, and JB yells, makes the call, points to it, but Lorenzo doesn't hear him. We got to be louder. That's just what it is. And those are two strange plays, but they could cost you a game. And so we've got to be better. We can't let that stuff, because that was a huge swing. Even the ball in the 2, we get a stop, and we're going to get that ball around midfield. We don't, and then we get to put the defense back on the field. So regardless of how that all shook out or took a funny bounce, it doesn't matter. It just cannot happen. We got to get the ball back in those situations.
And final questions, front row, Ken May on 3, Letterman Road.
Thank you, Jerry. Just 3 quickies. Number one, when y'all watch the play, the third,
had ones every week.
Yeah, the 3rd and goal out of the out formation, and literally the offensive line came off the ball as one.
Yeah.
One guy was off the line, was a beat late, and that's the guy
that made the play.
When you watch that on video, when you show it to the team, do y'all throw stuff at the screen? I mean, what you know what I mean?
Yes.
What is the reaction, and how do you get that point across? Because that's a veteran guy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's no question. You're exactly right. You hit it right on the head. We probably need to move him up in that situation. Give him a better chance to make that block. But he's done so many great things that so ultimately that's going to come down on us. We got to do a better job of putting him in a better situation. But yeah, that makes literally make us, we can't eat solid food. It's just sick. The fact that we didn't get in right there. But I just feel like we got to put him in a better situation.
The mesh lives, but as Marvin makes that catch and cuts across and goes to the side, Carnell Tate, freshman.
Yeah. Great awareness.
Threw really 2 blocks on that play. Yeah. And of course, the game is coming right at him, flopping on that onside kick, and he makes the catch and stuff. How does that elevate him in your mind? And what does it just show you about him and his gamesmanship?
Yeah, gamesmanship and awareness in that spot. And I think there probably was a situation where maybe he could have pushed him in the back, but he didn't. And then he slid off to the next. It's just really good awareness. Great signs for a young player. And then, they see Marv on one side and they see Carnell on the other side. They say, we're going to kick to the freshman. And he makes a play smooth and goes down and game's over. Don't take those things for granted. That's somebody who the moment's not too big for him. He was ready for that. And again, really encouraging for his future.
And one other thing, Josh Proctor, is he playing like y'all envisioned 3-4 years ago and stuff? When you watch video of him the next day, what's just showing up about him?
I think we've always seen his potential and what he can be. And you're starting to see it more consistently now. And he knows that, he and Lather are a big part of how we're going to play here down the stretch. And both of them have the ability, and you're starting to see way more consistency in that area. They're working hard. They're building confidence. I think you can just physically see that. And so that's got to continue this week. Thanks, guys.
You have a gram. So you can be super students. Awesome.
I saw it was hot.
All right, guys, we'll start in the front row with Dave Biddle. Dave, go ahead.
Hey, Jim, do you ever remember coaching a defense that was, I guess for you, 15-0 on third downs? At one point, you guys held them 15 straight. They were 0 for 15 on third downs. Do you ever remember coaching a defense that did that?
I remember some good days, but that's hard to beat. Yeah, I can't specifically recall that kind of production.
Tyleek specifically. I'm sure he's playing better and he's in better condition than last year. Maybe it's a combination. Is there one factor that's leading to him playing so much and so well this year?
Nope. Healthy reps, attitude. Tyleek has it all. So the athletic ability, it just keeps showing up.
Second row, we'll go to Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
Before you got here by a few years, this program was running into this issue where it had these sort of unexpected, catastrophic, I guess you would call it, losses that would crop up. Is there anything about the way Ryan runs this program that you think helps insulate against that, like the week-to-week approach to the season that helps avoid those sort of problems?
No, Coach Day just preaches consistency. He breaks down the week for our players, what we're doing every day so they understand it. And, he's got a great intensity to him, that can motivate the players without bringing them down. So it's just a complete program.
When you guys were deciding that nickel was the best position for Sonny, his ability as a blitzer, either just the skill or maybe his body type in that role, how much of that was a factor?
It's a definite factor. I mean, it's an added dimension when you have a nickel with his size and athletic ability to be able to attack the line of scrimmage.
Behind Nathan to Dan Hopeful, Edwards.
Jim, do you have any opinions on the whole sign stealing deal, and what do you do maybe to counteract other teams trying to do that against you?
I've been instructed by the higher ups, so I'm not speaking about that. It's a great thing about being a middle manager. I'm sorry.
On that note, we'll go to the back here with Steve Robinson. Yeah, Jim, when you look at the film of Jermaine specifically, just what stood out second watching of his game?
He doesn't flinch, at the point of competitive excellence. There was a shot, right, in press coverage, and he got his head back for the ball. He finished through the ball on a huge stage. So I think that speaks right there.
I wanted to ask you about that exactly because there were times last year where the corners didn't really get their head turned around and they got called for a PI. What does it say about a guy like that who can, like you said, first time on a big stage, is able to turn around and make the ball?
He's got a lot of naturalness, and he takes coaching well, and you can coach him hard, and he doesn't back down.
All right, we'll go to the center back, Patrick Murphy, 247.
Jim, when a team brings a quarterback off the bench to play in the red zone, like you guys were doing with Devin, what are the pros and cons from a defensive perspective of that, beyond the obvious of he's dual threat? You're bringing a guy in, I assume that gives you some idea of what's coming, but also more dangerous, I imagine, as well.
Yeah, you might have an idea of what's coming, but you got to remember it's all about practice time allocation, right? I mean, that's where there's only so many hours and that you're allowed to practice. So when you have someone with a different package, you have to practice that. You become more predictable, I guess, on defense because you just can't practice as much as you'd like to when the package changes.
We'll go fourth row on the aisle, Spencer Holbrook.
Jim, it seemed like last year you guys would adjust, but it would come after some of those bigger plays happened. Penn State had a 20-yard run, a 16-yard run, and then nothing else after that. What does it say about your guys that they're so quick to adjust? And maybe that starts with you, or maybe it starts with the linebackers. I guess where does that start?
Yeah, I just started to adjust sooner, I guess. But no, your point is well taken. They understand the system, so we can quickly go from one thing to another without having to get on the sideline and explain it and break it down. So they know enough that I can make those calls, change it right away, and they respond.
Just the experience and this knowledge of the system shows up when it comes to like not letting things snowball. Is there defenses that give up one big play that turns into two and it turns into a touchdown? And you guys seem to give up one, and then each play is like a new drive.
Yes. I mean, there's a resiliency that comes along with knowledge and confidence, and I think that's what you're seeing.
Jim Steele was kind of open that Notre Dame game and Maryland that he may have struggled a little bit, eye discipline, things like that. Did you feel like he was in that a little bit of a funk, and that was Saturday a bounce back in your mind for him?
I think Steele is always learning and growing. I mean, you really can't discount the fact that he was a running back. He's just always learning and growing. So, but he did have a really good week of practice, and I told him that without giving him too much sugar, because I said he might be a diabetic. That's what I said to him. No, Steele, you did okay this week, but no, he had a good week of practice, and it showed up in the game. So, but he's always learning and growing.
All the way to the left, Whitney Harding, WCMH.
Hey, Jim. When you play Wisconsin, there's going to be a really good running back in the backfield. Braylon Allen's another in a long list. What is special about him from what you've seen? What does he do that's maybe different or just does well?
He breaks a lot of tackles. He really does. In different ways, Guys try to go low on him, and he gets his pads down, and they bounce off him. So he makes a lot of tackles. It's the best I can put it.
That seems simple. One of the few explosive plays Penn State had against you guys with the tight end. Notre Dame had some really big plays against your defense with the tight end. What is it about those kinds of schemes with the tight end that maybe the defense is susceptible to, and how do you work on fixing that?
Yeah, you get guys closer to the line of scrimmage, right? When you're covering someone and you're closer to the line of scrimmage, things happen fast. So you get, you lose your eye discipline in terms of, the runs coming at you and the play action, and you don't have time and distance to decipher what's going on. So I think that's how tight ends get loosed, because things happen quickly.
Jim, is there anything unique or challenging about facing a Wisconsin offense that's going through a little bit of a philosophical transition compared to what they've done previously, but also still has a lot of the same personnel for the stuff that they were doing previously?
Yeah, they're spread the field more and challenge you with the RPO game. So, I think it makes them multidimensional because they still have the runs, but then they have the built-in passes off of them. So it makes you play more honest.
Go over here to Tim May.
Yeah, thank you very much. Obviously, they had to go to a different quarterback last week. The Mordecai got hurt, and this Locke kid, what just stands out about him? What's different about him compared to the previous guy? And how does that – you throw a lot of the video you had before out?
Yeah, they're still right now. They're still running the same offense. He's very similar. It's maybe he doesn't have as much experience, but really similar guys, same offense.
Yeah, but he kind of hit his stride in the second half against Illinois. So that was kind of an impressive comeback, wasn't it? I mean,
yeah, you could tell when he got some reps underneath him and into the flow of the game, he did a really good job.
And Josh Proctor, what's compared to Josh Proctor this time a year ago? What is the biggest difference? How can you describe what he's gone through in terms of getting him to where he is right now from the standpoint of being an effective, consistent player? At least it appears to be to me.
Josh's been through a lot of ups and downs, just in life in general. And I think that's why I've always coached college and want to continue to coach college, because he's just one of those guys. Sometimes it takes him 2, some 3, some 4, some 5, some 6, but eventually you get to see the light bulb come on and like everything starts to go right.
You saw him in high school. I mean, you.
Oh yeah, I saw him.
Yeah.
I was at his practice.
Is
Yeah,
this the kind of player everybody projected for him to be at this point?
this is it. He's starting to hit on all cylinders. Yep.
Fourth row middle, Tony Gerdman. I was just going to ask that, Tim. Thank you. When did you see it for him? When did that light go on this year? It isn't on. It sure looks like this.
He's on that path. He's on that path. Our job as coaches is to keep pushing him along. That's what we have to do. It was one of those things that where you hoped you saw the talent, but you really didn't know until games. You just didn't know with Proc until he started to do it in games, and then he started to string games together, and that's what makes a great player.
Was it frustrating for both of you last year that it didn't happen?
Sure. Yep.
Left on the aisle, Jeff Gilbert.
Safety-driven defense you talked about, talking about Josh. Is this defense being safety-driven like you wanted? Is that coming to fruition?
Yeah. I think you're starting to see that. I mean, you're starting to see safety show up in different places and making plays at critical times. And that's just an understanding of the system and how they can make plays.
We'll go front, second row here, Doug Luis.
Jim, all the work you put in during week to prepare for a game, are there times when you're sitting up there and like the artistry of calling a game, are there days where you feel like, okay, like I've got it, like I have a feel for this? And are there days where it's like, oh, I planned for this and it feels like, banging my head against the wall, I just can't get a handle on it? Like, what's it like when you're up in the box?
All of that. I mean, you can't, it's really one play at a time and 3 plays ahead at the same time, while you look backwards, to learn from what happened and what they're trying to do, maybe what you did well, where they might go with it. There's really no time to, kind of say, oh, that was good. I mean, maybe for an instant, but you have to move on. It's just a highly focused job, one where if you're doing it right, when it's done, you have tremendous headaches and you don't really know what happened. You know what I mean? You just try to get into a zone and stay there no matter what happens, because that's what we want our players to do. We want them to stay there, keep competing, keep playing no matter what happens. And that's what we have to do as coaches.
And Denzel Burke has played probably as well as any corner in the country this year. Just to have a defensive performance like you guys did without an excellent player like that, like what does that tell you about this secondary of this defense?
That just tells me they're buying in. They're seeing what Denzel's doing and the other guys, and they're all just kind of getting in line and ready to play. And coaching's been great. The attitudes have been great. The competition, right? Remember I said it all starts with the competition in practice and going against great receivers every day, and they're stepping up, and now they're all just hungry to play. They want their shot.
Right next to him, Stephen Needs.
Start with George Hancock. It's one thing to be able to do both of those things, but I would assume it's very difficult to be able to do both of those things in the same game, depending on what's going on in the game. What about his skill set lets you know that he could do that and make that switch from outside the nickel, basically from a down to down?
Yeah, he's got really good football intelligence, and I think he had his best game, and you saw him show up in different places at different times. He's got a very steady attitude, to be able to handle all the things that are thrown at him. His competitive excellence is climbing all the time, meaning, performing at the moment. He's just developing confidence. He's got size, he's got speed, athletic ability, and he's willing to be aggressive. He's a willing tackler, and that makes a difference.
The way you blitzed them, like it worked a lot on Saturday, and there were times last year when you would blitz it, it felt like the corners couldn't hold up in coverage, and that's where the things would break down at. What about your corners? Are you liking this year that maybe in a game like on Saturday, you sent maybe a couple more blitzes than you sent all season? Do you feel more confident that those guys are going to hold up on a week-to-week basis?
Yes, they're playing better. They're competing for the ball. They're in position, and they're making plays.
Fourth row middle, Andy Anders, London Warriors.
Yeah, so it felt like you did a little more with blitzing against Penn State. There was, I think, an all-out blitz where Proctor got a key third down stop. Just, I guess when you have players now that understand the system so well, as the year has gone on, do you feel like you've introduced more of those maybe aggressive blitz concepts because you feel confident in the back end to prevent big plays still?
Yeah. I mean, and they're always there. It's just a matter of timing and when to do it, and not put our guys in bad position. But you're right. The more they understand it, and the more we're able to defend on the back end, the more we do it.
We will go in the front row here. Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
You mentioned sugar before. A lot of sugar is being kind of tossed your way. You personally and the defense, I know you well enough. Does that in certain ways kind of scare you? I mean, are you feeling like things are really rolling and what can go wrong? Or are you thinking this is exactly where we want to be?
How do you know about my childhood? What do you mean? Yeah, it's really added pressure, right? And it's really becomes my job to get the players to understand that, when you start to play well, the expectations become higher, and that we can't go backwards. And the only way to do that is keep practicing at a high level. So it's really, I don't feel one way or another about it, but I know that our players are young men, so it's my job to keep yelling at them, I guess I would say.
What tangible ways can this defense get better?
We have we had some issues with some motion adjustments, where we can be better at that. They can do a better job of making the play when I make a bad call. They can do that, Yeah, I mean, and that's joking, but at the same time, it's like, okay, if we are not perfect in everything, right? Let's make sure that we still have leverage and get the ball on the ground. It's that like controlled chaos when something happens that wasn't exactly planned. How are we reacting to that? How are we handling that? But a lot of it has to do with just motion adjustments and shifts and things that I see that I know we got to keep working on.
Last set of questioners. First to Andy Baxter.
Jim, with Jordan, you mentioned his steady attitude. How much did that come about last year with his injury issues? And I know he said he couldn't fully explode. I guess what did you see from his attitude last season that's kind of shown this season as well?
Yeah, I think he, I definitely think he had a chip on his shoulder or wanted to do better last year and wasn't in position to do that. So I think he had his motivation to be really good this year was high, and he prepared himself that way.
All right, and then we'll wrap it up right here in the front with Joey Kaufman.
Wisconsin's typically the team that's going to be ball control, run heavy, and mid-pass years where their run pass splits might be 2 runs to every pass, and they're almost like a 50-50 team this year with their offensive transition. Just what's it been like watching them on film this week, getting ready for Wisconsin? It looks a little different.
Yeah, well, they just challenge you, from sideline to sideline. All their runs have passes off of them. So it's like I said, it makes them really 2-dimensional, whereas maybe in the past they're just 1-dimensional. Now you get the run, but You could also get the pass somewhere else on the field because they're both happening at the same time.
Put sugar in your coffee.
No, no way.
Coach, thank you.
All right.